As the first light of dawn touched Salem, the terrifying sentence still stood on the church wall. The ritual failed. She is ours. My eyes burned, my soul felt heavy. The faith I had built my life upon, solid and unwavering, was now cracked. Yet I couldn't give up. Lily's soul was trapped in darkness, and I had to bring her back. I looked again at the Maledictum Tenebris, the ancient book spread across my desk. My stomach churned as I saw Abaddon's name. On its yellowed pages, I found a passage that described another way to reclaim a lost soul. But it came with grave risks. The ritual was called Lux Sacra, the Sacred Light Ritual. The instructions were simple yet terrifying. An object belonging to the victim's soul. 3 nights of uninterrupted prayer, a sacred protection circle created with candles in each corner of the church, a doorway drawn with consecrated oil. But the most horrifying part was the final line. When the soul returns, Abaddon will follow. Faithless hearts become slaves to the dark. A chill ran down my spine, but I had no choice. I had to save Lily. I didn't tell Emily and Mark about the ritual. They were already terrified, and I couldn't risk breaking their spirits. I took Lily's teddy bear once again and placed it on the cold stone floor of the church. I arranged the candles and traced the doorway symbol with consecrated oil. Then I knelt and began to pray. In the name of the Lord, I release this innocent soul from the chains of darkness. Lily Cole returned to the light. The candles flickered but didn't go out. The shadows danced but didn't advance. At exactly 3 a.m., a shadow appeared at the window, a tall, thin figure with no face. Abaddon. Its voice echoed directly in my mind. You're making a mistake, Pastor Cole. She's ours. Your faith is weak. I clenched my jaw and responded, God is with me. I continued praying, and the figure vanished into the night. The second night brought more dread. At 2:30 a.m., the heavy church doors creaked open by themselves. Standing there was Lily. Her hair was messy, her skin pale, and her eyes pitch black. Father Cole, she said in a faint, lifeless voice, let me go. I'm fine with them. I tried to step forward, but shadows coiled around my legs like serpents. I kept praying, louder and stronger. Lily's eyes closed, and she collapsed to the ground. The shadows screeched and scattered into the corners of the church. The third night, the most critical night. The church was illuminated with candlelight. I began the ritual prayer. At 3:15 a.m., the ground trembled beneath me. The cellar door burst open and thick, black mist poured out. The mist twisted and coiled until it formed a figure. Abaddon. Its voice was colder than ice. Your faith is broken, Cole. Lily will stay with us. No, I screamed, raising the silver cross high and continuing to pray. In the name of the Lord, I cast out these dark spirits from this sacred ground. Abaddon moved toward me. Though it had no face, I felt its gaze piercing into my soul. It reached out, touched my chest, and everything froze. My breath stopped, my heart slowed, my mind filled with icy silence. With the last ounce of strength I had, I squeezed the cross and shouted, Lily, come to the light. The mist swirled violently. The candles went out. In the center of the church, Lily appeared. Her eyes were blue again. Abaddon let out a deafening, inhuman scream as the shadows were torn apart. Lily collapsed to the floor. I rushed to her side. Her heart was beating. Is it over? She whispered, dot, dud. Tears streamed down my face. Yes, sweetheart, it's over. But deep within me, I knew the truth. Abaddon doesn't give up that easily. That morning, I returned Lily to her family. Emily and Mark wept with joy as they held their daughter again. But that night, as I approached the church, I saw it. A new message written in blood across the front doors. We've only just begun, Pastor Cole. The true face of fear was only now beginning to reveal itself. When I woke up, my body felt as heavy as lead. The 3 nights of the Lux Sacra Ritual had drained me completely. But knowing Lily was safe with her family gave me hope. Yet that last message still echoed in my mind. We've only just begun, Pastor Cole. When I arrived at the church, the bloodstains on the door remained. I washed the walls with holy water and whispered prayers, but the feeling didn't go away. Abaddon was still here, waiting, watching, patiently preparing for its next move. I spent the day poring over old church records. In a document from 1845, I found a reference to an event called the Black Night of Salem. That night, 5 children had vanished without a trace. Witnesses claimed to have seen a strange symbol drawn in blood in the children's rooms, an eye within a triangle, the same symbol I had seen in the church. At the bottom of the record, one name caught my attention, Father William Ashcroft. Next to his name, someone had scrawled a note in shaky handwriting. He faced the darkness and paid the price. I began researching Father Ashcroft's grave. According to municipal records, he was buried in the old Salem cemetery. At dusk, I went there. His gravestone was covered in moss, but the name was still visible. Father William Ashcroft, 1792 to 1845. Beneath the name, a chilling inscription was etched into the stone. He gave his soul to the dark and brought salvation. My legs gave out beneath me, ... Ashcroft had fought Abaddon and sacrificed himself to stop it. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. No one was there, but in the dirt I saw fresh footprints. That morning, as I prayed in the church, the candles in the back pews suddenly went out. I turned around. A little girl stood there. She wasn't Lily. Her hair was pale blonde, her eyes pitch black. She clutched a scorched, broken doll in her arms. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. The girl tilted her head. Her voice was deep and cold, far too mature for her small frame. "You forgot about me, Pastor Cole. We're still here." She took a step forward and dissolved into the shadows. When I looked down, I saw a name written in blood where she had stood. Eleanor Thompson. I wrote the name in my notebook. I searched the city archives for Eleanor Thompson. She was one of the 5 children who disappeared in 1845. Her mother had been a member of the church and had assisted Father Ashcroft. In one of her journal entries, she wrote, "William sacrificed his soul to seal Abaddon, but the darkness waits. One day the door will open again." I knew it now. The door had opened. Lily's abduction, the shadows in the church, the appearance of little Eleanor. The curse had returned. That night I called Edward Thompson, the old man who had first warned me. His voice trembled through the crackling phone line. "Pastor Cole, the door, it's open. They've come back. You need to find Ashcroft's seal." "Where is it?" I asked. "In the church, in the cellar, but be careful. Abaddon is watching." The moment I stepped into the cellar, I felt it. The air was ice cold. The candle in my hand shuddered as if the flame were afraid. I ran my fingers along the wooden floor until I found a loose plank. I pried it open and discovered a small metal seal. Its surface was cold as ice. Engraved in the center was the familiar symbol, an eye within a triangle. Beneath it, 2 Latin words, Lux Eterna, eternal light. As I held the seal, the cellar door slammed shut behind me. Then came the whisper, "Pastor Cole, the final game begins." I shoved the seal into my coat pocket and rushed out of the cellar. The church seemed normal when I returned, but the next morning, Emily called me. Her voice was cracked with panic. "Pastor Cole, it's Lily. She's gone again. And there's a message on her window, written in blood." My heart stopped. "What does it say?" I asked. "When the light dies, the door opens." This was it. The final battle had come. I clutched the cold metal seal in my hand and prayed, "Lord, grant me the strength to win this fight." Because now I understood. This time it wasn't just Lily's soul at risk. This time the curse threatened the future of Salem itself. As I walked through the windy streets of Salem, I gripped the cold metal seal in my pocket. The words Lux Eterna were etched into its surface. Each time my fingers traced those letters, a fragile sense of hope stirred within me. ... Lily was gone again, but this time I wouldn't let her be lost forever. When I reached the church, I froze. The door to the cellar stood wide open. I had locked it the night before. Descending the creaking wooden steps, I heard a faint moan beneath the floorboards. I raised the seal and began to pray. With the light of the Lord, I dispelled the darkness. The sound stopped, but the air grew colder. In the center of the cellar floor, the familiar symbol reappeared, an eye within a triangle encircled by strange runes. I knelt beside it. The runes were written in Latin. Ad inferos porta apparitor, the gate to hell is opening. My heart raced. To save Lily, I needed to close that gate. One spent the morning scouring municipal records for any surviving notes from Father Ashcroft. Finally, in a faded handwritten entry from 1845, I found it. In the night of the 5 disappearances, I performed the ritual to seal Abaddon. But the ritual failed, for the 5th soul was taken. The name of that child was scrawled in the margin, Eleanor Thompson. Edward Thompson, the man who had first warned me, was her direct descendant. I needed his help. Edward lived alone in a crumbling house on the edge of town. When he opened the door, his face was cold, his eyes shadowed with dread. In the center of his living room lay an ancient book, Demonis Obscurum, The Darkness of Demons. The book's riddled pages detailed Ashcroft's sealing ritual. Edward pointed to a passage. To seal Abaddon, one must not offer an innocent soul, but a heart cross and shouted, "In the name of the Lord, release her." The shadows recoiled with a deafening shriek. Then, in a pool, from the darkness a shapeless figure rose. Its body was pure shadow, featureless and oppressive. The walls of the cellar cracked beneath its presence. Abaddon's voice slithered through the night. "Your faith is weak, Cole. You cannot see me. I grip the cross tighter. In the name of the Lord I command you. Begone." The seal on the floor began to glow with a golden light. Abaddon hissed, its shadowy form being dragged toward the crack in the floor. But then Lily screamed. The crack was pulling her in too. "No," I yelled, diving into the circle. I grabbed her as the shadows coiled around us. Her small hands clutched my shirt, her eyes filled with terror. Edward's voice called from beyond the circle. "Keep praying. If you stop, you'll both be lost." I held Lily tight and shouted with all my strength, "Lux Sacra. God's light is eternal." The seal blazed with blinding radiance. Abaddon released a nightmarish scream as it was sucked into the crack. The shadows disintegrated into smoke. The crack in the floor slammed shut with a deafening thud. The cellar fell silent. I looked down at Lily. She was unconscious, but breathing. That morning, I reunited Lily with her parents. Emily collapsed in relief, tears streaming down her face. Mark hugged me, unable to speak. But when I turned to thank Edward, he was on the ground. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling. His lips were frozen in a whisper of prayer. His heart had stopped. Edward had paid the price I was meant to pay. When I returned to the church that night, I saw it, carved into the cellar door in deep crimson letters. "Abaddon is sealed, but the door remains ajar." I sank to my knees and began to pray. The battle was over. But I knew, deep in my heart, the darkness would always wait, watching, listening, waiting for the light to die again. To be continued. Some stories don't end here. Some curses last forever. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and turn on notifications for more horror tales. And next time, make sure you're not alone in the dark. Good night from House of Horrors.